Hey, what's up, guys? This is part two of the series that I'm doing. Uh, this is really a wild ride I am going on, guys. It really is. Like, we always hear about this person and that person. Well, and we also know that on the 19th of November 2022, the stalker rumor starts that Kaylee had a stalker. But here's the thing. The person who started that rumor was Mark Fuhrman. Mark Fuhrman went on Fox News and stated that the Idaho murders were targeted and not that of a serial killer. Just as the chief of police said in the press conference, and this is the reporter talking to Mark, and you stated in your monologue, we have a targeted crime here. And they are not going to lay out exactly why it's targeted. I think the chief of police was quite candid, dancing around the question a little bit. So they are looking at this as a targeted offense. And a targeted offense means that the suspect knows and sought out one or more of the victims in that house, specifically for a reason possibly only he knows. Now, we've all heard, guys, that there was no stalking involved in this case. And I believe Bill Thompson even stated that in a court hearing, that there was no evidence of stalking in this case. So right here you have Mark Fuhrman, who now apparently lives in Moscow, Idaho, who has basically been on the most high-profile case in history, which was the O.J. Simpson case, and because of his bumbling and fumbling, O.J. got found not guilty with the famous line, when he was trying to put the gloves on, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. Now, see, here's the thing, though. Is Mark Fuhrman, is he in this case to basically do the same thing that happened in the OJ case? Because OJ was found not guilty because of Mark Fuhrman. Is Mark Fuhrman trying to redeem himself by basically screwing Brian? By putting his own speculations and opinions in the case? Because on November 20th, the misinformation started. From the source was Fox News, and the title on that day was "Idaho murders were not impulsive; it was a directed act." And guess who made that comment? Mark Fuhrman. And Mark Fuhrman laid out that only one person was targeted, and he believes it was Kaylee as the target due to the injury patterns, talking speculation as facts. He has a go at Art the Mayor and Scott Green. Now, in the last video, we talked about Art Bettich, the mayor, who wanted Dollinger to put out the statement, the press statement for the MPD, and the other lead investigator got removed from the case by Dollinger. Now, was he removed from the case by Dollinger at the behest of the outgoing chief, Lanier, or the incoming police chief, Fry? or possibly was he outed? Was he ousted because of Art Bedich, the mayor of Moscow? And see, just like on November 19th, you have the stalker rumor again. This time the source is Inside Edition, and the title of the thing is Weasel Words. A new wrinkle. Former LAPD detective Mark Fuhrman, yes, that Mark Fuhrman from the O.J. Simpson trial, now lives in Idaho and is claiming that victim Kaylee Gonzalez had a stalker. And this is coming from Mark Fuhrman. I talked to one student, and I agree with that. It was twice removed from the person that said it, Kaylee. But Kaylee had 2 months ago complained about a stalker. ISP is saying a sliding glass door, so we know it's not the sliding glass door. Okay, so why is Mark Fuhrman trying to throw his own monkey wrenches into this case? I would like to know. I would like to know that, guys. I really would. Why is Mark Fuhrman trying to throw his own monkey wrenches into this case?
Let's bring in Mark Fuhrman, former LA police detective. You live in Idaho. Mark, good morning to you. You've talked to some students. What have you found out, and where are you now as to how far police or investigators may or may not be?
Well, good morning, Bill and Sandra. Tragic. I mean, it's beyond tragic what happened in Moscow. But, I talked to students as early as Monday. I talked to alumni, some parents, not the parents of the victims. But what I did learn is I knew about these two girls that were in the apartment, in the house, that at the exact time of the murder. And their story was they heard partying. They heard noise, but they just, as usual, said, there's partying going on, and they locked the door. It's interesting that they said they locked the door, and then I talked to more students, and they go, well, when you're in a house that has a party and you don't want to party, you lock the door so nobody comes in. But it does actually create some more of the timeline. Now we have Madison and Kaylee that went to a food truck at 3:43. So when I'm trying to reconstruct in my head this series of events, we know that Madison and Kaylee are alive at 3:43. They go back to the house. Was that food eaten? Was that food still in packaging? Was that food?
Now we know that they did not go to the grub truck at 3:43 in the morning. We know that they were actually back at the house by 2:56. Not 2:56, 1:56, because we have the timeline from Olivia Gonzalez from that light bulb cam that shows them being dropped off at the house at 1:56. So I don't know where Mark Fuhrman is getting 3:43 in the morning that Kaylee and them was at the grub truck when clearly they weren't. They were back at home by 1:56. See, there's more of this spin coming off this former detective.
Part of the attack where it was strewn all over the house was Madison and Kaylee attacked first, and Xana and Ethan hear the commotion and come down. I think it's, interesting and really kind of disturbing that the police get there and immediately they say this was a targeted attack. And I think this is really important in this investigation at almost day 6. the targeted attack, it wasn't because they have seen so many homicides of this type they could make that determination. There was something at the scene that made them think that one of those victims was the target, but why? And I think it's time that they release at least the basis for that impression, because somebody might actually know something about one of the victims that they relayed before the murder.
Seems like so much of the information has been really, really slow to come out here. We caught up with Dr. Michael Bodden yesterday, forensic pathologist, who said that the scene, this gruesome scene that we've seen, the very graphic images of, Mark, should reveal more, particularly when it comes to possibly obtaining the DNA of the perpetrator. Because there can be slippage with the knife with this many stab wounds. I mean, horrific to talk about, but he said this yesterday.
When there's this many stab wounds and there's a lot of blood is very slippery, and sometimes the perpetrator is cut by the slippage of the knife, and some of the blood at the scene can belong to the perpetrator. And DNA will be able to evaluate that.
Hopefully that takes them somewhere with this.
All right, I totally agree, Sandra. And Dr. Bodden makes a good point about slippage. Blood is incredibly slippery, and in a battle with 4 different people, maybe 4 different times or some 2 at a time, there is a chaos, and you have to remember that the attacker is also trying to hold and fend off the victim with one hand and stab with the other, and sometimes his hand or forearm or even leg might come in contact with the blade. But there's another thing. The suspect is walking in blood. There should be a shoe print, a footprint, a boot print. There should be something at that scene that they cannot attribute to the police or the first responders that actually arrived. So that's important. The possibility that there's a 5th blood type / DNA there from the suspect's blood is huge. And I think that's what the FBI and ISP went in to try to find, to actually identify all the blood types. So these are important, but the targeted attack with the knife is a knife is a weapon of rage. And if one victim had, numerous stab wounds, more than every other victim, then you could assume that the one victim was the target and the rest were collateral. But then you have to actually tell the public who was the target, because they talk. People talk before this incident. And I talked to one student, and I agree with this. It was twice removed from the person that said it, Kaylee. But Kaylee 2 months ago complained about a stalker.
And there may be something to that. Yeah, Mark, thank you so much. Very interesting. And you say the most important thing is that the murder rate in Moscow, Idaho is 0, which could have an impact in the investigation. Mark Fuhrman, thanks.
The murder rate in Moscow is 0. That's really very something. So now, with this quadruple murder, kind of makes you wonder exactly where the murder rate is at now in Moscow, and exactly why are we having a corrupt former LAPD detective sticking his nose in this case. Now, I've heard that he was at one point a hired private investigator by Steve Gonzalez. And I've heard that too. But Mark Fuhrman being involved in this case don't make no sense to me at all. And it really don't, guys. Mark Fuhrman being involved don't make no sense. And this whole stalker thing that got started by Mark Fuhrman on Fox News. And I mean, he stated Kaylee mentioned having a stalker. Yeah, and on November 23rd, Kaylee mentioned having a stalker, but detectives have been unable to corroborate the statement. Investigators are requesting anyone with information about a potential stalker or unusual instances to contact the tip line. I don't think Kaylee had a stalker. I really don't. And this is another thing where you have Mark Fuhrman, who's been talking to students and finding out that Kaylee had a stalker, and Mark Fuhrman was the source of this whole stalker rumor on Fox News. And just like on November 30th, about the stalker. And the source was the Moscow Homicide Update. Regarding the interview with Latah County Prosecutor Bill Thompson, we feel his responses were messaged to support the implication that new information has been released, specifically generalized statements regarding the potential of a targeted victim. And the involvement of drugs were redefined into an affirmative answer. At this time, there is no change or new information in this case, and references otherwise would be inaccurate. And on like December 1st of 2022, detectives are aware of a sixth person listed on the lease at the residence, but do not believe that the individual was present during the incident. At Idaho State Police Forensic Services Crime Lab, scientists have worked on this case for weeks and have provided testing and analysis results to detectives. As they complete additional tests, those results will be provided to protect the investigation's integrity. Specific results will not be released. We remain consistent in our belief that this was a targeted attack. But investigators have not concluded if the target was the residents or if it was the occupants. So that right there, they're stating that this was a targeted attack, but they don't know if it was the residents or the occupants of the residence. And you have the whole stalker rumor going, guys, all the way through to December 19th. And then we have the whole DM narrative going on the 9th of January 2023. And the person behind the push for DM being this hero and this saint and this brave girl who identified the killer, Mark Fuhrman. We are where we are thanks to this Idaho witness. And Mark Fuhrman defends Dylan and pushes the Dylan narrative that she is a hero. And I'm sorry, I don't believe she's a hero. If she was a hero, she would have instantly, after seeing the perpetrator in the home, she would have called 911. But she didn't call 911. What she did was she closed her door, locked it, and waited 8 hours to call. And it wasn't her to call 911. It was one of her friends that called 911. She is no hero. If she was a hero, she would have called 911. I'm sorry, that's just the way I feel about doing. But like always, guys, like, subscribe, and comment on my channel. And the part 3 of the series is going to talk about Glovegate. And that's what I call it. I call it Glovegate because of the glove that was found on the outside of the home by a certain person. And I'm going to get into that in part 3. But like always, guys, like, subscribe, and comment on my channel. Hit that bell notification for any new uploads. And I'm just getting started in this. And thanks for tuning in and going on this wild ride with me through true crime. And we got to stop believing the narratives of Mark Fuhrman. We really do. And I want to thank my research team, especially Lady Yana. Yeah. You guys have a good Thursday night. We'll be recording part 3 here in a little bit. This is Robert with True Crime Podcast. I'm out. Peace.